I've just heard a loud noise in the back. I've stood on my back wall and the house immediately to the back of us. There's a lady lying there in shorts and a t-shirt and she's groaning. She's lying in the backyard on her back. She looks like she's struggling.
She was very independent, knew what she wanted. She was very career driven, working her way up to do an environmental health chartership.
28-year-old Ashley Dale was looking forward to a carefree night at the Glastonbury Music Festival with her boyfriend. They seemed like a typical couple, but he had a dark secret. In the early hours of August 21st, Ashley's door was kicked in.
A Hyundai i30 drove into 40 Leinster. 3 of the tyres of Ashley's car were damaged outside.
Bullets tore through the night, and Ashley was left crumpled in her front yard, her phone just out of reach, trying to call her boyfriend. The gang missed its mark, but claimed Ashley's life.
That there were 8 shots at least that were fired directly towards Ashley while still walking towards her.
There were witnesses, there were voice messages, there were texts. Despite all the evidence, her boyfriend did not come to her aid. What led to this tragedy? To understand this tragedy, we will tell you a bit more about Ashley Dale and her involvement with gangsters. Welcome to the channel, where we discuss in detail true crime cases and tell you what truly happened and what the media hasn't told you clearly. Today, the story of Ashley Dale, a victim of loving the wrong person. From the very beginning, Ashley Dale's life held challenges that would test even the strongest spirit. Born to Steve Doone and Julie Dale, Ashley grew up in Liverpool, England, in a blended family that included her 2 younger sisters, a half-brother, and her stepfather, Rob Jones. Despite the warmth of her family, Ashley's path was far from easy. When she was still a teenager, her world was shattered by the homicide of her little brother, Lewis Dunn, in November 2015. Lewis, a sweet and gentle 16-year-old, became the victim of mistaken identity in a senseless act of violence. While walking along the Leeds-Liverpool Canal, he was targeted by 3 gang members who believed he looked like someone from a rival gang, simply because of his curly hair. Shot at close range with a shotgun, Lewis succumbed to his injuries. Though his untimely demise was a big blow, justice was served when his assailants were arrested and convicted. Not one to give up, Ashley channeled her grief into strength. Determined to make something of herself, she pushed forward with her education, graduating in 2017 with a degree in environmental studies. She later got a job working as an environmental health officer with Knowsley Council, earning the admiration of her colleagues for her work ethic and willingness to tackle even the grittiest tasks. Her mother recalls with pride how Ashley, ever glamorous and meticulous about her appearance, wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty when the job demanded it. They were like friends because Julie had been only 16 when Ashley was born.
Ashley was so career driven. She was working up to become Charles' environmental health officer. She was working with a portfolio. She got up every morning. She went to work every single day and had done for the whole time. They would leave together. And I used to tell her on a regular basis,
Beyond her career, Ashley thrived in social circles and building meaningful connections wherever she went. From attending music festivals in her younger years to curating the perfect dining experiences for her family. Ashley was always the heart of the party and the glue that held her loved ones together. She had a pet dog named Darla and was an animal lover. Her family knew what she wanted in life. Ashley often dreamed aloud about settling down, getting married, and starting a family. In 2017, she began dating Lee Harrison. In 2022, Ashley was navigating a complicated relationship with her boyfriend, Lee Harrison. Although they had been together for 5 years, Ashley was beginning to sense that their paths were diverging. Where Ashley held down a steady job and pursued her ambitions, Lee's life seemed less anchored, leaving Ashley unsure about their future. He was unemployed and mostly drifting here and there.
Our children would stay in Ashley's house a lot. She was quite homely, as well as you like the festival. She was quite homely, so she'd eat and tea, have them over on a night. If we ever thought there was any issue like this, obviously we wouldn't have let the kids go there. She presented herself as being happy with and with previous boyfriends, and like a lot of the relationships get to an end, you could see the writings on the wall with others, and they ended. Ashley was presented as being quite happy with although what we've heard, the trial obviously is shocked us. The type of things, the world that Lee's been into, or the periphery of, associated with, however you want to phrase it. Ashley thought she could improve thought she could turn him around, could get him a job, could get him a driving licence, could push his life in the right direction more than we ever knew how wrong the direction it was going in. Yeah.
He had been in trouble with the law before. Ashley's family completely disapproved of him. To them, he was simply good for nothing. By June 2022, it was quite clear. Ashley was at a crossroads in her personal life. Despite knowing that her boyfriend wasn't the man she wanted to marry or start a family with, she couldn't quite bring herself to end things. Their relationship dragged on, with her parents quietly disapproving and Ashley herself unsure about Lee's elusive lifestyle. He wasn't the type of man you could start a family with. But it makes one wonder. Lee always seemed to have money. If he was unemployed, how did he have so much money? He didn't belong to a rich family. Ashley did not think to question this. Instead, she went along with it. Maybe deep down she knew and didn't want to acknowledge the truth. That summer, the couple attended the Glastonbury Festival, a massive 5-day music event featuring headliners like Arctic Monkeys and Elton John. What should have been a highlight of the summer turned into a weekend filled with drama and arguments instead. This tension foreshadowed the greater tragedy that was yet to come in Ashley's life. Unbeknownst to Ashley, Lee's newfound wealth had come from his ties to a gang called Hillsiders. The gang had stolen drugs from Lee's close friend, Niall Barry. The insider of the heist was Lee Harrison himself. But this was over 3 years ago. It's unclear why Niall Barry did not act upon it. Maybe it took him a long time to put 2 and 2 together. The fight was instigated by Lee's side of the gang. During the festival, Niall's friend Sean Zeiss was attacked by another member of the Hillsiders, Lee's friend Jordan Thompson. Lee moved in different circles than Niall, running with a crowd of gangsters who didn't cross each other's paths. Though Lee and Niall had been close friends at one time, their relationship soured after the robbery, and they hadn't spoken in years, until they unexpectedly met at the festival. It's unclear whether Lee was officially part of the Hillsiders gang, but he certainly had ties to several members. The attack on Sean Zeiss was serious. To add insult to injury, Sean's girlfriend, Olivia, went to hang out with his attacker's friends. She left him and went to none other than Ashley and Lee, embarrassed by the attack. This angered Sean. He had a quick fuse, and his girlfriend leaving him was the last straw. Ashley spent most of her time comforting Olivia, while Sean and Niall were looking for Lee with a large knife, ready to stab him. Thankfully, there was no confrontation yet. Perhaps due to a tip or just a roadblock, Niall Barry was stopped on his way home from the festival. They recovered money from his bag along with his passport.
What's your name, fella? James. Okay, mate, can you just put everything you got on top there for him? Okay, usually they may have drugs on you or in the vehicle, okay? So I'm detaining you for a search. I'm piecing up enough on spray, ropes to this unit, okay? So you need to have the cars. Okay.
Police also took into evidence a knife, which was the grounds to place Niall Barry under arrest. This was significant because Niall Barry had been using Joseph as a lackey, someone to place the blame on, making him carry all the money, using him for drugs and weapons. Niall always had insurance because he wouldn't be tied up with evidence, even though the officers knew he was the boss man calling the shots. Yet Niall continued to deny the knife was his. He knew they would try to get warrants and pin him down for drug trafficking.
James has got £700 in cash on him, but that's below the threshold. Oh, hello, Mr. Niall.
Yeah, that'll do.
That'll come in. I think that was it, to be fair. Niall, time is 25:02, mate. You're going to be arrested under suspicion of possession of that, okay?
That's not my bag.
It's in your bag with your passport in it, okay?
Yeah, I've just showed that to you before. My passport was in his bag.
So you don't have to say anything at my own defence if you don't mention questions. Thinking later on in the court, anything you do say may be given in evidence, alright?
That's not my bag.
It's got your passport in it.
Ask him, he grabbed all my stuff before. Ask him, he grabbed all my stuff before.
Is it just one bag? No, there's two bags.
My bag's the carrier bag, the white bag. With all the clothes in.
You did say straight away that his passport's going to be in his mate's bag.
I did say that, yeah, I did say that. Ashley because I did the first
Right. You're under arrest for now, okay?
Joseph was prepared to take the fall for this. He agreed that the bag with the knife belonged to him, even though it had Niall's ID card in it.
He's saying there's some ketamine in the bag. I didn't find any.
Yo, his bag. The blue one?
That one? That's yours? Okay. Right, okay. So, I'm going to arrest you then, on suspicion of possession of this, okay? So you don't have to say anything but harm me defensive, do not mention any questions, saying over there, line report, okay? Anything you do say maybe give evidence. Obviously, this is a lock knife, right? So you're under arrest for possession of a bladed article. Where's the ketamine in here then? What? I've searched the bag and I can't find any ketamine. What was it in? It's your driving license in your bag.
Yeah.
So it's the
other guy.
The chap with the baseball cap, he's confirmed it's his bag. And the guy whose passport it was in it is denying it's his bag, saying it's his mate's bag.
Oh well, and it's on tape then.
Yeah. To be fair, I think as soon as, to be fair to Niall, the other bloke, as soon as he's been stopped, he sort of said, like, my passport's in that bag, but nothing else in there's mine.
Oh, okay.
And the other chap.
Meanwhile, things escalated. Ashley messaged her friends constantly. She was afraid there would be a clash between the old friends. August 20th, 2022. It was a late Saturday night. Ashley was home alone in her pajamas, texting Lee. Her sister Claudia was supposed to stay the night, but didn't. So, with canceled plans, Ashley was stuck at home. That's when she heard her car alarm go off. It was 11:40 p.m., and Ashley lived in a safe neighborhood. First, she texted Lee, a little afraid. Then, she texted her mother that the heavy rain was causing her car alarm to blare. Saw that on the news today because of the heat wave, the world's ending. She texted referring to climate change. But there was something more sinister at play there. There was a car driving around her house like a shark circling its prey. At 11:51 p.m., she texted a selfie of Darla and herself to a friend. Something had spooked her dog. I've never known anything like it. She's scared of something outside. She's got me nerves gone, and now won't leave me side like an actual baby. The driver and his partner had slashed 3 of her tires, rendering the car useless. Ashley was completely unaware, cozying up with her dog Darla. This was an attempt to lure her out. Luckily, she didn't bother, assuming it was the rain. 20 minutes later, around midnight, Lee finally texted back. Haha, you think you're in a horror movie. Are you okay? Alive? Ashley jokingly replied, no, I'm dead. She tried putting Darla in her cage for the night. It was 12:30 a.m. Suddenly, there was a loud crash as someone kicked through her door. The detectives were later able to analyze what happened that night through ballistics and forensic evidence. To Ashley's shock, the door lay flat on the ground as a masked gunman broke into her home, firing 8 shots straight at her. She tried to escape through the dining room, out the back door, but there was a blast of gunfire. Bullets drove straight at her. 10 shots were fired at Ashley.
Taking the door down completely, only leaving the frame intact. Ashley has started to flee the address from the dining room area. We could show from the footwear marks and from the ballistic evidence at the scene that there were 8 shots at least that were fired directly towards Ashley while still walking towards her. There was 2 that were shot further towards the skirting board area.
And one of them got her in the abdomen. She fell in her backyard. A neighbor saw her and called the police as she moaned in pain.
I've just heard a loud noise in the back. I've stood on my back wall and the house immediately to the back of us. There's a lady lying there in shorts and a t-shirt and she's groaning. She's lying in the backyard on her back. She looks like she's struggling.
The manic gunman even aimed for Darla, firing 2 shots at the helpless dog. He then ran upstairs to the guest bedroom and fired a series of shots over the bed.
There was 2 that were shot further towards the skirting board area. So we believe that that was intended towards the dog, because the dog cage was there towards the right-hand side. And then he's continued to go upstairs to the spare bedroom where the light was off, where he's just about walked in. Again, we could prove that forensically with the footwear and the ballistic evidence, that then a further 5 have been fired over the top of the bed. It's unbelievable to think that Ashley's younger sister was due to be staying there that night, and it's only by chance that she didn't, or this could be another story that we're telling here as well, in addition to Ashley, which is bad enough.
By the time police arrived, Ashley had taken her final breath. The officers called out in the empty house, eerily silent. As the police officers walked through the house, they could see spent casings and bullets in the dining room. An officer remarked that he could smell cordite, which was a firearms propellant of high grade. He said it was like a war zone. There was a bullet hole right beside the back door. Ballistics would later reveal the shots came from a military-grade Scorpion submachine gun. In her hand was her phone. As detectives went through her phone, it was heartbreaking. Her last call at 12:32 a.m. wasn't to the police or her mother, it was to Lee Harrison. And since she was unable to reach him, she left him a 1-minute 43-second long voice note. At 12:33 a.m., the Hyundai had left, so the perpetrators shot her up and left all in 2 minutes and 46 seconds. At the hospital, Ashley was pronounced deceased. The investigating officers went through her phone and realized Ashley was narrating the noose tightening around her neck. The entire series of events from the Glastonbury Music Festival till she lost her life were recorded in a series of voice notes and text messages. It turns out Olivia broke up with Sean and started seeing Jordan Thompson, the man who attacked him at the festival. On July 22nd, Sean messaged Niall and asked him to smash Olivia's car. There were multiple texts to brick her window or vandalize the car somehow. There were threatening text messages to Olivia as well, calling her various names. Sean accused Jordan of causing one of their friends to take his own life. This friend's name was Ricky, and at his funeral, there was a lot of tension in the group. Ashley was afraid that something terrible was going to happen. She sent her friends voice messages that if Niall and Lee saw each other, there could be a fatal showdown. To avoid something terrible happening, she told a friend that she was going to talk to Lee to settle this business once and for all. She wanted to ask Lee to tell her the truth about his ties with the criminals and how deeply he was involved, because now she was concerned about where his wealth was coming from despite being unemployed. She had looked the other way long enough. It was time to know the truth so she could be prepared for what was to come. After attending Ricky's funeral service, his friends went to a bar to celebrate his life. Someone told Ashley that Niall was going to be there. Afraid that something terrible might happen, she offered to go with Lee. She arrived before him and realized that Niall was inside with a lot of people. So she messaged Lee to avoid the bar completely, and they decided to celebrate his fallen friend elsewhere. It seemed that they were planning something after all because Sean started sending Olivia threatening messages. Ashley remained by Olivia's side, reassuring her that she was caught in a war. It wasn't her fault. Sadly, Ashley didn't realize how she was going to get caught in the crossfire. Police were able to place Joseph Piers at a store buying a burner phone the night of the tragedy. This was suspicious. That day, sometime after the shooting at Ashley Dale's home, Joseph Piers and James Whittam popped up on the CCTV of a hotel. The night of the 21st of August, Niall and Joseph stayed at a hotel and resort, enjoying the spa and relaxing. James can be seen going through his pockets while Joseph pays for the hotel. With all the evidence gathered from Ashley's phone and their whereabouts on that day, James and Joseph became primary suspects. Unfortunately, the two had fled to Scotland the following day. Police first brought Ashley's boyfriend Lee in for questioning about the events of that fateful night. To investigators, it seemed suspiciously convenient that Lee wasn't home when a violent intruder broke in and gunned Ashley down. During the interrogation, Lee explained that he had been in a taxi on his way to a party at the time of the shooting. He admitted to seeing police tape on his street while en route, but instead of returning home, he continued to the party. When officers pressed him about potential suspects, they raised the possibility of Niall and Sean being involved. However, Lee dismissed the idea, saying he had no reason to believe they would target him or Ashley. He even described Niall as an old friend and insisted there were no ongoing issues with the group. As the questioning continued, Lee became increasingly uncooperative, refusing to provide further details. He brushed off concerns about any threat to himself or Ashley's family and refused to assist in the investigation. Police noted his nonchalant behaviors and lack of urgency or concern for finding Ashley's assailants raised serious red flags. Despite Lee's stonewalling, police focused their attention on Niall and Sean, who quickly became prime suspects. Investigators discovered that Niall, in particular, was attempting to flee the country, a discovery that only intensified suspicions about his involvement. Police also found out through surveillance footage that the Hyundai driving by Ashley's home had been bought 6 days prior to the tragedy. Niall had taken an Audi and exchanged it for this gray Hyundai. Joseph and James were also seen casually buying beer at a disco store, but the car they used was the same gray Hyundai. 41-year-old James Whittam accompanied him. James' DNA was found on a cartridge at the crime scene, as well as his shoe prints, matching a pair of gym shoes that he had bought on the 18th of August. Police could tell from the shoe print that James had been the one to kick down the door, but who else was with him? Niall was found to be talking to someone named Gus at 3:09 p.m. the 22nd of August. He sent a message prompting the person to call him. Then the two exchanged some text messages that seemed to be a coded way of saying he was off to Amsterdam or France. Gus explained Niall must only bring one kit bag, not much luggage. Niall immediately called Sean. Further messages on the 23rd and 24th of August confirmed their suspicions. Niall was seen on CCTV on the 24th, driving to a resort to meet his girlfriend. The officers knew they had to act quickly. They showed up at the hotel to arrest him, but quickly realized that Joseph Peers and James Whittam had fled to Scotland. Fortunately, the two came back to Liverpool on the 13th of September and were apprehended. James Whittam gave out a fake name to the officer and didn't seem too bothered about being arrested. He didn't even try to deny the charges. In a suave manner, he simply popped a cigarette in his mouth and held out his hands. He even managed a smug smile.
Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Gonna put you in cuffs, mate, alright. What's your name, fella?
Francis.
Say that again.
Francis Kelly.
Gary.
Francis.
Gary Francis.
Francis Kelly.
Francis Gary.
Francis Kelly.
Carrie.
Kelly.
Kelly. It's alright. My ears, your. Right, we'll walk over here, fella.
I've got the key. You got it?
You got anything on you you shouldn't? No. Anything in the vehicle that you shouldn't be?
No.
Yeah. James?
100%.
Right, okay. You're under arrest for suspicion of murder. Alright, you don't have to say anything. The Miami defence, you don't mention one question, something which will let in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Alright? Whatever time was now. Yeah. Come on, we'll come over here. We'll sit behind my vehicle. Yeah. He's confirmed that he is James.
Joseph Peers looked a little more worried. He didn't want to take the fall for this one, but like James, he wasn't denying the homicide charges.
Open the windows. Open the door. Alright, lads. Keep your hands where you can see him. Just keep your hands where you can see him, pal. I'm put you in some handcuffs. Yeah, one about that side, just need driver out that side. Yeah, no bother. Just open door for us, mate, until we confirm your identity. And we'll put you in handcuffs. What's your name, fella? Eh? Joseph. Tom's just getting driver out and then all three will be secured. Arrest on suspicion of murder, okay? You don't have to say anything. Miami defence, you don't mention one question. Some future later on in court, and anything you do say maybe
Niall admitted to spending the evening of the shooting watching a UFC fight with Sean and others at his flat, but refused to answer many questions. Investigators discovered that both Niall and Sean were heavily involved in organized crime, using encrypted communication via the EncroChat network. Messages also revealed that their involvement in obtaining a range of firearms, including the same type used in Ashley Dale's homicide. but police quickly linked James Whittam and Joseph Peers to the crime. Evidence placed James at the scene, with his DNA and shoe prints. He confessed but offered a lot of stories, claiming he was under the influence of drugs and acted impulsively to send a message to Lee. Despite his insistence that he thought the house was empty, ballistics revealed the shooter pursued Ashley as she fled, indicating a deliberate attack. Police had reason to believe that Sean and Niall were targeting Lee from a distance to avoid suspicion, recruiting James and Joseph to carry out the hit. When their initial attempt to lure Lee outside by slashing tires failed, James broke into the home, shooting indiscriminately and ultimately wounding Ashley. Since Ashley's homicide was unplanned, they moved around to avoid being arrested. 3 weeks before their trial, James Whittam took a plea deal, agreeing to manslaughter. Ashley's family sought justice for the life that was snuffed out so early. By their trial in November 2023, police had built a strong case using CCTV footage, forensic evidence, phone data, EncroChat messages, and witness statements.
On the second indictment against Zeiss and Barry, I imposed concurrent sentences with the count 1 murder sentence. For the drugs offences, count 1 to 5, the culpability and harm categories are mostly agreed between the prosecution and defence. I return now to the minimum term to be served as part of the sentence of imprisonment for life for the murder of Ashley Dale. I must adjust the 30-year starting point to reflect the aggravating and any mitigating factors. Also, I adjust that term to take into account the different roles played by each of you.
The judge delivered the final verdict coldly.
Stand up. I sentence each of you to imprisonment for life on count 1 for the murder of Ashley Dale. Niall Barry, on count 1, murder. Your minimum term is increased to 35 years, but must be further increased to reflect your offending in counts 2, 3, and in the second indictment. Your minimum term is 47 years, less 433 days served on remand.
Niall got the longest sentence. Even after James's cooperation with the law, there wasn't much leniency since he had been directly involved.
James Whittam, on count 1, murder. Your minimum term is also increased to 35 years, but must be further increased to reflect your offending on counts 2 and 3. Your minimum term is 43 years, less 295 days served on remand. Joseph Peers, on count 1, murder. Your minimum term is increased to 33 years, but must be further increased to reflect your offending in counts 2 and 3. Your minimum term is 41 years, less 295 days served on remand.
The judge didn't cut Joseph Peers any slack either. The only person who got slightly less years was Sean Zeiss.
Sean Zeiss, on count 1, murder. Your minimum term is increased to 32 years, but must be further increased to reflect your offending in counts 2 and 3 and the second indictment. Your minimum term is 42 years, less 448 days served on remand.
James, Niall, Sean, and Joseph were charged with conspiracy to take the life of Lee Harrison and the homicide of Ashley Dale. Niall and Sean faced additional charges for drug trafficking, to which they also pleaded guilty. Lee, the man who seemingly got Ashley involved in all this, seemed to be having a blast. He was on vacation during the entirety of the trial and posted strange tributes on the anniversary of Ashley's homicide. But as luck would have it, Lee was arrested in November 2024 on drug charges. The evidence is overwhelming as he awaits trial. Ashley's story is sad because she was an innocent victim, someone the shooters weren't even planning to get. Whether they truly believed the house was empty or they were simply saying that to get a lighter sentencing, Ashley Dale's life was lost too soon. It is saddening that she had a sense of impending doom from the beginning of this conflict, and in the end, her fears came true in the worst way imaginable. Do you think justice was served? Should Lee Harrison be held responsible as well? Let us know in the comments below.